Hello, and welcome to another video by Rick Miracle Me. In the series Freemasonry and Satanism, number 73, part 2. And we left off on this book, Transylvania Sunrise, with a couple of very interesting sentences. I guess if you join the dark side or go with the New Age, the Freemasons, which I believe the Zionist, Talmudic Jewish people, and many others are involved, from the Jesuits, Rosicrucians, and all the other groups that are into the occult, magic, witchcraft, that we've mentioned over and over, the Illuminati, Bilderberger Group, Club of Rome, Council of Foreign Relations, so much more. And they pick and choose our leaders for us, people that they believe and they know that they can trust to do their bidding. So where did we leave off? We give people the kingdom of the universal architect who can really take good care of them. You call him the Prince of Darkness. Crazy. Peter Moon, Radu, Cinamar, Transylvania Sunrise. I've been, I research. I'm the researcher that researches the researchers, the book writers, the authors, old books, new books, magazine articles, videos, press releases. I research the research and share it in all these videos over the years. So the Prince of Darkness is what the Freemasons want to give us. First of all, you must persistently follow up on your own interest in everything you do. That sounds like Aleister Crowley, do as thou wilt, the evilest man alive. You must persistently, if you join one of these Freemasonic Illuminati type temples, lodges, is follow up on your own interest in everything you do. This will require great efforts and commitments, and quite serious sometimes. For instance, this may include denying your religion and even giving away your soul. But you will taste the power, the wealth, and the extraordinary influence at the highest levels of society. There's going to be some extraordinary information come out in this video. Page 143. Transylvania Sunrise. Go buy the book. I want to give credit where credit is due. I read books, study the material, and add my commentary. Now you must understand that the first rank of the daily workers, the low-level Freemasons, has no access to such information that concerns the secret aspect of Masonry, particularly our worldwide plans. Just reading my highlighted portions. You have to know, however, that it is us at the peak of the pyramid, and we cannot be sued in court. There is no other state structure above us for the simple reason that we have created almost all of them. As I keep saying, we always take care to stay close to the so-called charity actions by means of some foundations that also belong to us. I keep saying that. Ford Foundation, Carnegie Foundation, Heritage Foundation. Yep, they control them. It's a front. In fact, these foundations enable us to transfer large amounts of money under the color of legality and philanthropic goals. We are the ones who retain, in fact, the world financial monopoly, for we control all the money markets. The World Control Project is meticulously set up. We mostly control this money, but our real influence consists in the huge debts we basically force upon all governments. And as I've said, the so-called 18 trillion they say the USA owes to these people, this money they're spending like water for their world domination plans, none of that money has been spent on us. And in reality, we have been fleeced of our money by these people. This isn't the American citizens' debt, although the American citizens don't know it. We don't own the Federal Reserve. It's a private enterprise. Just like our congressmen, senators, and all the other politicians and presidents. They don't work for us. They have their own goals. They work for these Illuminati types. The puppet masters. This is basically the main target for which we founded the two high financial structures in the world. The World Bank and the International Money Fund, IMF. But the strongest stroke which has made our greatest success was getting the USA into debt so that they completely fall under the financial politics we arrange. Not just me saying this stuff. I got other books I'm going to go over that's going to say it and say it and say it. When will the people wake up? Just as I said, the essence of such politics is the interest on loans and the subsequent debts and all forms of obligations or concessions to result in our favor. And they have put up all of America's natural resources, parks and minerals, as collateral from the money that they're borrowing from these Illuminati satanic types, demonic types, Freemason types, high level, Zionists, Jesuits, all these banksters, Hollywood people, CEOs, all of them into this Illuminati, New World, New Age order. Even the United Nations is controlled by these folks. This is how we control the economic world, and we direct it where we please. We can create real instability or obstruct the payments where we have a particular interest. Countries in bankruptcy is what we are best at, for we can thereby indirectly rule a whole people, a whole nation. We obviously fix and connect these strategies in advance by misinformation through the international media, which also belongs to us. How many times have I said these things? Hundreds of hours of videos I've made. Book after book, we find out this information. Investigator after investigator, author after author. In case there is somebody to oppose it, there would normally be no problem to do away with him as a political or social personality. I don't have to keep reminding myself and everyone the recent deaths of doctors investigating vaccines, recent death of doctors that are into holistic medicine, recent death of astronomers, recent death of bankers, a lot of people. Recent purge of military leaders from the USA. This is November 20th, 2015. Lots of crazy things going on. It might behoove us to pay attention. This is why every president of the USA is our choice and the outcome of our Masonic goals. He must absolutely be an outstanding member in our Masonic lodges. Least we forget, George Bush, John Kerry, a lot of them come from the Skull and Bones. They have to have somebody come to your house and paint that on your door for you to realize that's not a good thing. My opinion. Little commentary there. We found the easiest and safest way to attain chaos and disunion. People joining together under positive and beneficial ideas or concepts is quite dangerous to us. For this is the only way for the masses to become really powerful in their action. So they don't want people coming together, hence why they bash the Tea Party or anybody who tries to do the right thing. Our final goal is having the culture and religious traditions vanish away in different countries to the point where they lack the power of individualization. They may be easily controlled and assimilated in a unique governmental form, which will be obviously directed by our Masonic world elite. And who's behind Freemasonry? If you've been watching my videos and reading books, that would be Jerusalem, King Solomon's temple. The people controlling that, the Illuminati, the Zionists, the Talmudic Jewish people, who deny Jesus, who are trying to crush Christianity. These are some of the things that's in this book. The new generation must be perverted at the soul and have their senses poisoned with false ideas, lies, and all kinds of alluring vices. Just go watch some TV programming right now. Murder and mayhem repeatedly, over and over and over and over. You'd think people would say enough is enough. That was quite easy for America, as they basically have no tradition at all. And I think that's a lie. 50 years ago, it was pretty much a largely Christian nation. But with the TV mesmerization and programming, they were able to change that person by person. Statistics by statistics. Just like the lottery. When they first tried to pass that in Florida, it was overwhelmingly rejected. And I remember reading an article, and one of the spokesmen for the promotion of the lottery said, "No problem. We just have to educate the people." And year after year, the press releases, the benefits, the school system, and slowly the approval rating came up, and Florida got the lottery. And then years later, they did the same thing with the gay marriage agenda. Overwhelmingly driving across the nation, listening to nighttime talk radio against gay marriage. No problem. Education, education. You go watch Ellen DeGeneres and you see all this mind control, bringing in some poor little child who wrote a letter to somebody saying, "My daddy's boyfriend is such a good guy, but people at school make fun of me." For education, education, mind control, mind control. So they say that we Americans have no tradition at all. It is currently the place on earth where all our plans have been perfectly carried out, the complete submission to the social economic system with total control and financial oppression. So says the leader of the Freemasons, Bilderberger Group, etc. in this book. We maintain this idea of power in the Americans' mind, for it prevents them from revolting against the system that they have been offered them such a comfortable idea of supremeness. So a lot of people in America believe we are the supreme nation in the world, when nothing could be further from the truth. These people who rule our country are all over Europe, all over the world. Probably hiding in secret underground cities and caves and castles. A few people, maybe they're not people, which in this book we're going to get a huge surprise. Yes, indeed, they may not be people, as we know them. Since they are less cautious, that's we Americans, and can easily be manipulated, the Americans can stand for the peak offensive in our plan to conquer the absolute power on earth. That's why they want to disarm the USA people. It's the only thing that stands in the way. Let me remind you here of a basic rule of our Masonic regulations. Give secret support to both sides. I've been saying that all along. They control the Republican Party. They control the Democratic Party. They really don't care which one wins. They want the people to think that they have revolted and picked the right party. And if you notice, it just goes from the Democratic leadership for a few years, Republican leadership for a few years, Democratic leadership for a few years. They're playing us for fools. The same people are in charge. Obama's operations in the Middle East have been exactly like Bush's. I don't know who's overthrown more countries and killed more people. Which administration? by smart tactics in politics and the economy, and give a shoulder to each combatant in order to reach the success you pursue. Most of the countries fall into huge debts, striving to cover the military expenses, no matter that they are not involved in wars. We give them loans, but ask the governments to guarantee them with many assets, mines, forests, railways, several industrial fields that are quite important. This is the main way for us to gradually take hold of a country's wealth and control the people in that country. Page 148. The Christian church is one of the most dangerous enemies we have. Remember, this is a high-level Freemasonic master talking to one of the intelligence officers in Romania, and he's trying to get his assistance in some kind of secret operation, and have that guy so-called join their Masonry groups. Its influence is quite large yet, but we endeavor to decrease it as much as possible. In doing so, we particularly target the young generation, which we try to get unbalanced by means of our ideas. So we already know they're trying to crush the Christian religion and banning Christmas as they've done. We need to resist this and bring Christmas back into all of our city downtowns, parades, and everything else. We can't have them destroying Christmas and then promoting Halloween. Demons are good and Jesus is bad? Is that what they're saying? We also counted on the lack of common sense, the vanity and the conceitiveness of most people. In case any resistance position may rise against the general background, the representative must be eliminated right away. So if anybody rises up as a leader to resist these people, he must be eliminated. We generally proceed to disparage by means of the media. Yeah, tell that to the doctors investigating vaccines and speaking out. They're dead. Or Denny, the demolition expert over there in Norway. On the YouTube videos, you can go see this. When shown a video of Building 7 that free fell, besides the Twin Towers, he said there's only one way. Absolutely. It was rigged with demolition. 7 days later, he's dead. John Kennedy said there's a secret establishment operating behind the scenes. 7 days later, he's dead. Etc., etc., etc. People dying who they don't want to talk. Eventually, nobody will ever give credit to such a person, one who talks. Since we display concentric and pervasive assaults, often spiced with blackmail, the subject will soon feel forlorn, accused by what he dared to write or say. He will be threatened, job blackmailed, and discriminated in society so that he will eventually give in. He will go back on his courage. Sometimes he will even become our partner. This is the main drama we created in society. Most of the people are weak and cowardly. This means unity and force in common goals, which is just what we are trying to block. So they don't want any unity and force in common goals by us American citizens. They want everybody divided, blacks against whites, women against men, gays against straights, Americans hating the Arabs. At the same time, they're promoting all the Arab religious activities and bringing them in here into the United States from Syria. They're doing both at the same time, speaking out of both sides of their mouth. One, that they're evil, and two, we're bringing them all here, and you have to take them into your communities. As far as I'm concerned, the Arabs are just a victim of this. They would probably be happy to have stayed in the Middle East and not be fleeing for their lives. Bombs dropping, tons of all kinds of horrible stuff from the planes. Bombs and phosphorus. Helicopters with machine guns. Well, it's true that our elders, the Illuminati, also make use of secret techniques of persuasion and influence in order to determine specific effects in the physical world. There we go. There's a key right there. Determine specific effects in the physical world. As if they're saying there is a non-physical world. We know, in my opinion, that this is a battle that goes beyond this material world. There's a cosmic battle going on, being played out here on Earth also, and they want to control this planet and the people, and get people to turn towards the dark side. It says it right here. Determine specific events in the physical world. This is why we absolutely need to attract people like you, who have already attained remarkable powers. So this Freemasonic master is trying to convince this intelligence officer to join their groups. We are willing to offer so much instead. We choose some venerable members. They have interviews and write books and articles, and some real and inoffensive aspects about our structure and activities are depicted. So they have people working on the inside that are even writing articles about them. The principle we follow in proportion is a quarterly reality, a quarter reality and 3/4 fake. So even that guy on TV on the nightly news is telling you a little bit of truth, and you know it's true, but then he just proceeds with some additional information that you assume is true and you can trust him. It's not. One ought to question what just happened in France, November 2015. Now the French are bombing Syria. Russia was bombing Syria. England wants to bomb Syria now. Israel was bombing Syria. The U.S. is bombing Syria. They're having a hard time taking him down. But you can bet they want to. And with their propaganda and lies, they will have all the people convinced they should. The large amount of data that is given to the audience contains some real information which we cannot deny anyways. How could anyone suspect us of concealing information since we freely offer it? Obviously, those true things are wrapped and adorned in lies so that people shouldn't get too much of it and therefore quit investigating the topic. Even if they try to deal with other fields of our activity, we pose as innocent oppressed victims. We know they do that with the Zionist Jewish program, with the defamation leagues and all this other stuff. Even trying to defend Zionism, when most people have no clue what they're talking about. All they say, it's just, oh, the Jews need a homeland. They've been oppressed for 2,000 years. What about the 1,000 years prior to having Jesus crucified? When they were enslaved in Egypt, and they had all kinds of incidences in the Bible, that God was unhappy with them and punished them. Why were they dispersed from Jerusalem in that area? Long time ago. Why was King Solomon's temple destroyed twice? And prophecy says they need to rebuild it a 3rd time to bring about certain events. And even the Freemasonic thing, I've shown pictures where they have little models that they have made about the new temple with all the Masons in the background for a photo op. This stuff's real. And we're going to go over that, and over that, and over that. Even if we try to deal with other fields of our activity, even if they try to deal with other fields of our activity, we pose as innocent and oppressed victims. We currently started to tackle this strategy as it's high time we came out of the shade we had deliberately chosen for ages. And they are trying to market themselves as a legitimate force now. Due to the keener conflict, staying too much in the shade would now make much more trouble than advantage. So at some point they have to just come out and say, hey, we own and control everything. Everything that you have that's intellectual property, inventions and writings and poetry and books, and sciences, we did it all. They're lying. We very well knew that repeating a lie would make a truth out of it. Didn't Himmler or Hitler say that? Say a lie, a huge lie, big enough, often enough, everybody will believe it. In the long run, which causes people to lose vigilance. We must give the impression that we are helping people, then that we support them in need and pain. Our main directions, particularly sustained by our politicians, fan a major interest for people's current problems, mainly produced by the world economic recession, managed by our organization. So they're creating the economic recessions so that we are distressed, and we do cooperate with them when they promise to fix the problem they created. We should take possession of the political and economic leadership in the whole world and form a unique world government under our complete and total order. We must therefore get people's confidence as much as possible in order to give the impression of a natural sequence of events. They're lying. The French terrorist situation recently was not a natural sequence of events. Go look on YouTube. Look at some alternate websites. See some other people's opinion. Don't believe me. Namely, the terrible world crisis is to come. And so we'll erect ourselves as redeemers of humankind, for we do own the financial resources to do this. So they have the ability to fix everything today. But that's not part of their goal. They'll do that in their own time when they're ready to have everybody on their knee to them. Basically, the task is not that difficult, since the masses' vigilance is already weakened. I have a friend, I just visited him today, he owns a restaurant, and he's had 7 operations for cancer in the last 7, 8, 9 years. And he said the VA just informed him they cut him off, and Blue Cross, some kind of insurance, cut him off also. So he's got nothing right now. And, you know, he's retirement age. What is with that? He's been paying into that system 20 years. TV programs structured so as to inoculate a passive attitude in people's subconscious. TV programs structured so as to inoculate a passive attitude in people's subconscious with lack of reaction and discrimination, chemical food, drugs, and all kinds of diseases. And the TV program is crazy. They're creating all these monsters in all these cities, like some kind of evil James Bond, where the evil whoever he is doing this or that. We've all seen James Bond movies. And all the programming now, they're having these evil people robbing, killing, and all kinds of other crazy things, controlling adult sexual prostitution, people trafficking, child trafficking. It's just sinister. They're portraying we the people as sinister people among us over and over and over. Caesar said in such situations, the psychic frequency of the venerable Mason was so strong and dominating that it would have doubtlessly made a serious hypnotic effect upon the common person unable to control the superior level of their mind. So these people come across as very dominating people, and I've had that happen. I own my own business for 25 years, and I run into these people every now and then. And I suppose I'm not such a weak character, owning my own business, but I truly do try to give a good service and help people. But these people, that when people come into my life and you can catch them pretty quick. They try to really befriend you and compliment you. Your warning flag should be going up. Wait a minute. He had to perceive, he had himself perceived in his aura the tough impact, that shroud of energy, deeply negative. So we all know about auras that go around our body. And some people can see the auras. And different colors show positive and some of them show negative. And also, clearly enough from my investigation, thinking evil thoughts, being an evil type of person, does not make a person healthy. It makes them sick. It's not a positive function for your body. To be a manipulator, liar, cheater, and all that. The second confrontation. So we got to chapter 4 here. So he's going to meet this venerable Freemason master again. Masonic manipulations and the illusion in which most human beings are living. So where all of us see reality, we don't realize how much of it's being manipulated. Amazing discovery that was just about to take in Busiji. So this book talks about a secret program about a discovery in the mountains in Busiji, B-U-C-E-G-I. And I did go on the internet and look that up. And like I said in this video, I have some fascinating information to share. And we know already, 10 years plus, since 9/11, and even before, apparently there's an ulterior motive for all the activities going on in the Middle East and other parts of the world. With these satellites in space, they can actually X-ray the ground, I suppose, like they can X-ray you or me. And they've made some interesting discovery. Pyramids underground, hollow caves and equipment. And these people who want world domination have control of these discoveries. Very bizarre. He offered him some extremely confidential information in exchange for his promise to assure the access of certain Masons to the discovery that will occur from the confidential information. So the Mason master is talking to the intelligence officer, trying to bribe him. And it says Masons at a global level. I'm only reading my highlighted portions. They could make up and start wars between countries and people. Masons at a global level, making and starting wars between nations and people. And dividing even in nations between blacks and whites, creating all that stuff. You have Masonic lodges in every town. All you have to do is command them and give them some money to round up the people and telling them they're being oppressed and they need to go out on the streets. I always wondered where those people got those nice signs and all that stuff that cost a lot of money. It was supplied to them. There were organizations behind the scenes motivating them. And we people watching the news, we think it's just a natural rise up because they're being oppressed. Where'd they get the nice signs? How did everybody know to get together? Why was the media there? Intentional. Chaos and anarchy. They have a purpose. They could easily ensure that there is a general state of conflict in one continent or another, but they couldn't force military actions in a certain country unless there was a major reason behind it, such as an inter-ethnic fight or conquering new territories. So like 9/11 or even the recent France terrorist attacks, they have to make these events occur, create them, to bring about a goal that they have. Pardon my speaking today. Some days make the information flow easier. Sometimes I gotta spit it out. Though he did not know why, he understood that this information was vital for the Masonic leaders, as they had used all their power and influence to gain access to it. I am skipping a lot of stuff here. Only doing my highlighted portions. Go buy the book. Not trying to do an audio book here, but I did find some interesting information I wanted to share. Masons were trying in the shortest time possible to attain control over the secret location in Romania, a place called Bucegi, B-U-C-E-G-I. And again, on this page it says here, that is why he chose to meet me sooner, to make sure I had all the information I needed to publish a credible book, and that would be the author of this book. So the intelligence officer in Romania knew this author, and he was informing them what the Masonic masters and those people in high places were doing and offering to him, because they wanted to get the information out so the public would be aware. Alright, I knew that in these times humanity has a tendency towards moral, ethical, and spiritual decay. But I was also convinced that the good was able to defeat this dreaming state that was trying to take over. So we all are living, here I go, can't speak today. We are all living in a kind of a dream state right now that's surreal, like the Twilight Zone. And everybody can tell. Yeah, everywhere I go, I talk to people, I go, oh, that's crazy today. Isn't that crazy? Isn't this nuts? Talking about Trump, talking about Bush, talking about Clinton. And there's nobody who says it's not crazy today. People are picking up on this. But I will tell you that basically that the good can be understood in the absence of evil. Obviously following the same logic, the evil is the absence of good. So if you don't have any good going on, or people trying to do good or tell the truth, evil will prosper, which it is. I believe it isn't news for you that Christianity associates these two aspects with heaven and hell, but beyond the subtle planes of manifestation, to which heaven and hell are generally speaking, good and evil. Well, a lot of people know that. Of course, a lot of people these days are being told more and more, even by friends telling me people they know that are even dying or very aged. They're right to the end. They're saying there's no God. They don't believe in it. They've been that brainwashed. It is good to know, however, that the human being is completely free to choose between the two extremes, good and bad, good and evil. No one is forced or obliged. So a lot of people are voluntarily choosing the dark side. We're being programmed. The mind control on the TV, the media, talk shows, magazines. Every city, street you go down there, they got these little boxes. They got the Times Today or the City Outlook or something. Open it up and start reading some of those articles. I collect those. One of these days we're going to look at my collection. And they're all manufactured. The article is coming from some source. And so all these little presses, these small newspapers in all these cities and downtowns are getting the same kind of mind-controlled articles to put in their magazines. From here, step by step, they can redo their lives starting from a totally different position. So all of us can make a change and wake up. Evil is always easy to be done and is based on inertia. Slowness and ignorance because it doesn't imply any effort. So anybody can be evil. That is why it is said it is very easy to do harm, but it is very difficult to do good. Moving on, skipping a lot of material, just doing my highlighted paragraphs. Many people don't have that inner force that is needed in order to give up on their harmful habits And that's why, at the global level, there is an increasingly tendency to regress with amplified evil and perversity. So these guys are having a discussion. So this is that the Masonic elite use exactly that inertia, laziness, and mental obscurity that characterizes most people in order to control the world population. Mostly these actions, which in certain very high Masonic circles involve black magic rituals. Like the Bohemian Grove, go look it up. Alex Jones snuck in there with his camera, video. You can see the video. Politicians and high people in high places, CEOs, etc. Videoed there, photographed there. And I guess during this cremation of care ceremony, they dress in long robes, naked, and the screeching and howling is like a witches' convention or witchcraft ritual. And they throw a baby into the fire. Bring in gay men for sex for these men. No women allowed. So it really is some kind of satanic ritual event. Crazy. And also, let's not forget, Charlie Sheen recently, of 2.5 Men, announcing he has AIDS. Should be an example to everybody. The lifestyle he was promoting, and it wasn't really him, the TV producers and all that lifestyle. And the effect, what happened to him, should be a warning to the rest of us. It doesn't pay to play. It'd be a horrible death if if he gets some kind of illness or sickness from that. But I hear it is, you know, they have medicine now, they can probably manage to contain it. But it still should be a lesson. Why are they promoting the gay agenda when things like that can happen? That doesn't make sense to me. Having pride parades when something like that can happen, it doesn't make sense to me. Unless somebody really wants to destroy we the people. That makes sense to me. We're reading it in the book. Mostly these actions, which in certain very high Masonic circles involve black magic rituals. I'm not only referring here to the physical phenomenon of sleep, but also to a certain state that people are taken over by, where they become very submissive and act as puppets. This is one of the main Masonic purposes, striving to make it occur at an entire planetary level. So they've been promoting this gay agenda all over the world. I guess Tel Aviv, or some city in Israel, is now the main place to go on vacation if you're gay. They vehemently attack anything that is spiritual, authentic, and sublime, thus pursuing the transformation of humanity into some sort of a living mechanism that they can operate and rule according to their own will. So they're trying to take away the soul and culture of a nation and control the people like robots. We know they want to microchip everybody. That's even now coming out of the United Nations. They call it some kind of ID thing. Real ID. And they'll create more chaos in the world. Put more immigrants or fleeing peoples from countries into other nations. Causing more turmoil. Saying they need to track everybody to save us. You'll have to be microchipped to save you. How many people will fall for that? So then you get a chip inside you. I'll bet most people don't know there's more to those chips than meets the eye. They can do things to us. Control us. Make us hear things we think we're thinking. Turn us off. Cause us to have a heart attack. Know where we are at every moment. Oh my. There's always hope. You only have to know how to feed it with great faith and purity. Again, just reading highlighted sentences that these guys say. Just thoughts we all should consider. We should be using our God-given brain anyways. One of the greatest farces of the Masonic elite is leaving the impression that two or more Masonic lodges are fighting against each other. Moving on, I'm only doing a little bit here. Move it to the next page. Acting out of ignorance, the human being chooses to self-destruct. Moving down, this return of the being to spiritual origins must be fully conscious and free of any inferior temptation, of anything that could mean illusion, constraint, or prejudice. So we all need to get rid of our hatred, forgive other people. We can build up our souls and ourselves. If you correctly understand this aspect, you can say you understand why evil is needed in creation. We're trying to explain this stuff away. If evil didn't exist, you couldn't realize the necessity of your return to the source. You would endlessly wander through who knows what corners of the universe. This way, though, evil's role in the creation of the universe has the main purpose of testing human beings. This is the New Age explanations. That's obviously the Mason master speaking there, trying to rationalize what they're doing. Successfully passing one of these kinds of tests can mean an important victory in the struggle of dominating the inferior nature of human beings, and this victory can materialize in an increasing capacity of understanding certain subtle aspects of life, resulting in the gradual awakening of spiritual maturity and discernment, or in a multitude of other beneficial or positive aspects. Again, this New Age tries to rationalize why these evil people should rule the world. They're doing us a favor. I've had people tell me that. They believe that stuff. One of my friends said, hey, there's no evil, there's no good. And he said, hey, Rick, and even if you raped my daughter, I don't think I would think ill of you. It's just the way it is. And then he says, I don't know what I would think. I know what I would think. Somebody raped my daughter. They'd better run and hide. Practically speaking, these tests are our own confrontations with the forces of evil that are part of creation's demonic and satanically subtle plans. This is valid for individuals as well as for a couple, a community, or even a nation. This is what these satanic people want you to think. It all has a purpose to benefit you. Take the microchip. Take this vaccine. Don't ask what's in the vaccine or what it might do to you. Don't ask about the sky spraying in the sky. It's not even there, even though you can take a photograph or a video. Don't believe your eyes, believe us. So they would have us believe. Nevertheless, exercising your free will and having the possibility to choose implies that the human being is aware and responsible of their freedom. And a lot of people don't take that responsibility serious, as we all know. You now know enough about the Masons' involvement at a global level. You are aware of the terrible battle between good and evil on this planet. Remember, this Mason master wants this intelligence officer to join their group. You choose good, then you will continue to act in this direction, and you will persevere in your fight against the Masonic plans. The same applies to all other people, only most of them don't even know the truth about what the Masonic plan is in reality. More than that, the way evil forces act is so perverted that it infiltrates anywhere it finds a fertile place, anywhere a weak or contaminated enough conscience appears. So they think we're all weak and we'll take the temptation. You probably know, however, that one of Satan's greatest farces is to convince human beings. That's speaking right. So, however, one of Satan's greatest farces is to convince human beings that there is no devil, that Satan himself doesn't exist. This is about the same way that Masonic organizations function, leaving the impression that they do good and wish only good. And I made a little comment on a press release the other day, and somebody made fun and said there's no such thing as Freemasons or Illuminati and any other kind of aliens or boogeyman out there. So they do have these people on the internet that are out there to ridicule anybody trying to talk about the truth. They call them trolls and other names. I call them propaganda soldiers that even Rumsfeld said they had to have in the basement of the Pentagon, rooms full of people like telemarketers working at laptops trying to discredit anybody telling the truth. I don't understand how it is possible for human beings to live in this huge conspiracy and not be aware of its existence, exclaimed the intelligence officer. Why are you surprised, says the Master Mason. Even you, until not long ago, used to live without even knowing about the Masons and their terrible plans. Their vigilance is a first and a very hard blow for the Masons, because a vigilant being is much more difficult to deceive, manipulate, or control. So anybody who's paying attention and does a little research is a threat to the Masons. Most prophecies say that in the end the good forces will prevail. The Masons are a horrible hydra, are the ones that conduct all these demonic orientations that bear on all the people of the planet. In Romania, for example, especially lately, the Masons act as they please. The poor people are kept ignorant and manipulated. They do not even suspect the reason for the tragedy they are living. If this hydra, this snake, was defeated, then we could witness a very fast regeneration of the entire planet. Even if they find out about the Masons' devilish actions, they will choose to deny it or to rely on others taking measures in their place. More than that, they ignorantly participate in certain demonic orientations that are continuously fed and supported by the Masons through the unleashed rock music, drugs, alcohol, tobacco, and through materialistic outlook. Listen to some of the new pop songs that come out in the last 10 years and recent. Just listen to the words. They got that one there for the waiting on the world to change. You don't think everybody's just saying that over and over, listening to the lyrics? It's mind control. In these conditions of gradual but certain degradations of the human being, who in this way loses their own will and determination, it is easy enough for the Masons to fulfill their plans. Unfortunately, the situation is the same in our country. People are sleeping. They are not awake. The state is even worse than when they hadn't any clue about the Masons. Demonic plans, because to know and still not to react is a great cowardice and a big deviation from the most elementary moral code. For example, the pyramid with its all-seeing eye at the top is not accidentally on the dollar bill. We know that. If you coherently analyze the way things are going now in the world, and also in Romania from the social, economic, and political perspective, you will easily realize how this chaos is structured to gradually ensure the setting up of a new world order that is not called the new Masonic order. That would be too obvious. Moving on, there are profound demonic forces behind the Masons that imprint in the members of their organization a certain state of terror, an attitude of subordination like an army. The Masonic order is not to be discussed because in the initiatory moment, when they get to go through their initial rites, when they get initiated into a lodge and they have to swear on a Bible with a rope around their neck, blindfolded, a dagger pointed to their chest, under threat of death not to divulge any secrets. A perverse ritual in which they oblige themselves to total surrender and obedience, accepting to be killed if they act otherwise. This means that beyond their actions in the physical plane, the Masons also apply certain occult methods and rituals that are deeply malevolent. So they do these rituals and these swearing on these Bibles, these anti-God activities, does affect the initiates, the recruit's soul, taking it maybe from a positive soul to a negative soul. It does harm to the human soul, the thinking, the living. It's destructive. Masonic group, one's adherence to a Masonic group will create such a profound negative change in the person's aura. See, I just said that. When comparing it to his previous state, will force him to admit the malevolent nature of Masonry's orientation. So your aura, your soul, can go negative a certain frequency, or be a good soul, have a certain frequency. And when somebody is evil and knows they've done terrible things, in Christianity, it's called, in the Bible, it's called repenting. So you can cleanse your soul and go to the other side. But it takes a little bit of effort and intention. Just saying. True, the Masons are now one of the most powerful groups. I could even say that it is the only occult group with political purposes. This demonic action leads to so-called soul breaking for those who enter the group. I thought about this the other day. It's kind of an interesting thought. But apparently, if you know anything about psychic research or auras, we all have on the top of our head a silver cord. You can look that up. So we're beings. We have a silver cord that connects us up into the atmosphere. It's kind of like a group consciousness, all of us. But soul breaking would be something that severs that cord, or switches it from being connected to the benevolent heavenly realm where the angels are, and as Jesus said, in my Father's house are many mansions, I'm not of this earth. So when these people do go to the dark side, I think the silver cord and their connection goes to the malevolent, the demonic plane instead of the heavenly plane. Just something I was rationalizing in my head when I see some of these things of soul breaking, or as we said in previous videos, soul snatching, when the Jews were complaining about converting Talmudic Jews or Jews to Christianity. They were accused of soul snatching. And in my studies of psychic research, which we'll go over that again and discuss the silver cord and the shakas and all that, the energy field that makes us up, which is a reality. We're all electronic computer type beings in these physical bodies. They can hook up an EKG to you or me, and see if we're lying, see how we're dreaming, all kinds of interesting new technologies. And the malevolent forces from these control of these Masonic Illuminati and other evil groups in the world have been studying these technologies intensely, especially since World War II. The demonic action leads to the so-called soul breaking for those who enter the group. So you have to be aware. Even those girls in a local school recently who were playing with a Ouija board all became possessed at the same time, had to be restrained, and had superhuman powers. I'm going to have to print that out and show it. But apparently it's not a single situation these days. And even in the past I've read that the Vatican has had to educate more exorcists because possession is on the rise. Something more to reality than we all know. From this point of view, feelings like kindness affection, and compassion are completely unknown to the Mason, because with these feelings he could not obey the orders. So when you do take these initiation rites as a Freemason and somehow get severed from the benevolent world of frequency and you join the negative world, you don't have those feelings of kindness, affection, and compassion. Through the occult initiation ritual, the one that enters the organization is deprived of all these feelings, because he then does a sort of a pact with demonic forces. Just stuff people ought to know. When the Masonic elite promote a member of a lodge to a high and important position within the organization, it has certain subtle criteria that say if that person has changed enough in the demonic direction. It is almost unbelievable how much human misery can be at the top of the hierarchical pyramid. But everything is guided and made to look shiny and noble through their extraordinary wealth, connections, influence, and control all over the world. And the intelligence officer says, "I will never accept his proposal. Indeed, I wasn't anywhere near their soul-rotting standards." Masons are no fools. On the contrary, they possess a great intelligence, but it has a perverse and even demonic nature. At the top level of their hierarchy, they often use nature's occult energies, not only those ones that are evil or very low and inferior. Just reading portions of these pages, things we should ponder and think about. I already knew about some very occult prophecies made at the end of the last century by two great Christian saints. They are about the future of Romania in the context of the entire world's future. I also found out about the strict secret existence of a very valuable scroll from the Great Library of the Vatican that speaks about the same matter regarding Romania's territory. An inconceivable situation for the mentality and ego of the world powers. In the secret archives of the History Museum of Vienna, there is also a very old document that describes the remote future of a fabulous historical civilization that inhabited Romania's territory in those times. So all of these are different sources, two of them very old, that refer to more or less the same issue. And if you've been watching my videos, hundreds of hours, we keep seemingly circling around some of the same issues, truths. Therefore, it is hard to believe that we are dealing with a hoax, because there are many more aspects that connect. For example, the prophecies say that it is only a matter of a few years until the unleashing of the signs that will draw attention upon this territory. They have lured and are still luring naive people, weak in character, wishing for easy money, that are willing to sell their souls to get themselves a place in that so-called high society among the rich people. And we know a lot of those Zionist, Talmudic Jewish people seek out those places in high society. It's an obsession, control and power. The main purpose of this many organizations is to obstruct any attempt of spiritual development or social and economic normality of the people, creating at the same time the false impression that their activities are focused especially on solving these issues. For these reasons, when I found out about the astuteness of the plan conceived by those of the Bilderberger Group elite, I correlated all these aspects because the situation seemed obvious. Highlighted another sentence here. Find it practically impossible not to notice the often amazing and complex way most prophecies come true. So if you do check into prophecies, you will be amazed how many come true. They have all the interest to maintain this nation at an almost unbelievable level of poverty and ignorance. They're doing that all over the world. Page 180. Their very unusual and shrewd politics it's not that easy to read like this. You get your throat all dry. And their very unusual and shrewd politics serves mainly to economically suck dry the remaining people and to bring them to that totally addicted state, imposing at the same time external help loans that create attachments and obligations. And we all know they're doing that all over the world. If the situation continues developing in the same way and an awakening of the responsible people does not occur, it is possible for these things to go on and even amplify in the next period of time. I've been saying that if we don't stop this, it's going to get worse. Things are quite clear now, but I wonder what will be the best way of neutralizing the Masons, malevolent force and demonic plans. So you got this talking back and forth between the intelligence officer and this Masonic master. The most practical way in the present context is first to reveal the Masons' evil actions to all the other people, even though face-to-face discussion or by publishing it, either through. So getting the information out there is the first key. And of course my solution was to read books and then share what I read, because who has the time to do what I did over 11 years now? People don't have 11 years to get on the ship on this problem solution and see what's going on. We don't have 11 years. It is obvious that their actions were and still are very insidious, mainly oriented towards a blockage of any brilliant ideas, any extraordinary intervention, or any discovery of progress that might improve the quality of people's lives. These evil forces are not going to allow that. They want to annihilate and even eliminate any special human being. They do their best to promote mostly scarecrows, corrupt people. So they call them scarecrows. Imagine that if a stubborn people and people of goodwill were placed in key high positions, these people would refuse to participate in the Masons' intrigues, games, and backstage miseries, which, as you will well know, take over politics and economy in the country nowadays. This subversive politics, diabolically maintained by the Masons, is primary to create an evil resonance with people's lack of hope and lack of trust. Moving on here, the most senior Masons are trying to destroy by any means those people or organizations taking advantage of common people's naivety that they can easily be manipulated. It is stupendous what a demonic intelligence can come up with. It is stupendous what a demonic intelligence can come up with. That's what the intelligence officer said. So that's page 185. So I'm just reading these sentences and paragraphs, but there is an important part of this second half of this video that should blow people away. Wow, that was a lot of interesting material in this book. I thought I'd do a little intermission here and do a worldwide tour of some historic information in Nexus magazines. July 2013, The New Directions of Mind Control. As I say, I read a lot. So I thought I'd just do a quick run through these magazines, because the second half of Transylvania Sunrise is explosive. Some information you just might not believe if it weren't for this little tour through history. The new directions of mind control. Electromagnetic manipulation of our minds and genetic modifications of our foods are already techniques of mass social control. The next step for biotech giants is to modify food crops in such a way as to silence vital human genes and reprogram our second brain. Remember, we are spiritual beings in these bioelectric bodies, and they're trying to sever our connection to the spiritual realm. It's going to become more clear even in future videos what they're up to. It's horrendous, insane. But shale gas fracking, GM food, a vehicle for mass mind control, UFO sightings over Russia's Arctic region, Atacama alien humanoid early DNA, stunning ex-CIA whistleblower testimony, Eisenhower's threat to invade Area 51. I collected these over the years, and that would be June, July 2013. Seeds of Destruction, the Monsanto GMO whitewash. So when I'm talking about all these things, I like to show you that they're sourced. Monsanto's deadly maize cover-up in Europe, asthma breakthroughs, superwave threat from the galaxy's core, Bermuda Triangle, a pilot's extraordinary tale, ancient UFO hidden beneath Hindu temple. UFO hidden beneath Hindu temple. Since I began my investigation around 2005, after I took a little vacation to Costa Rica and met with a bunch of guys at a tiki bar in Jaco Beach, and they informed me that we USA citizens, they felt sorry for us, that we were unaware of what was going on in the world. I took offense. I went back to Florida, started doing some research, and as I've said before, they were correct. We don't know what's going on. A history of America's death squads. Well before the start of the insurgency in Syria, on March 2011, U.S. military intelligence and government operatives have already laid the groundwork for the recruiting and training death squads. Their model based on the successful Salvador operation, lest we forget that the CIA created Al-Qaeda, and of course these current death squads would probably be ISIS, under the control of these New World Order folks, and they are making the Arabs in the area flee, even the French recent terrorist attack, and days later France is flying jets over to Syria, bombing. So it says it right here, U.S.-sponsored death squads from Central America to Iraq and Syria. This would be February, March 2013. Got another one here, how the Norse gods fit into the Anunnaki puzzle. The Anunnaki credited with jump-starting civilization. Some ancient beings were credited with jump-starting civilization in Sumeria, Egypt, Asia, the Americas, and elsewhere, may have exiled some of their gods to Scandinavia, where the deeds have been preserved for posterity in Norse mythology, and this would be January 2014. World Bank whistleblower speaks out. The changing face of genetically modified technology. Evidence of Nazi nuclear weapons, Norse mythology, and the ghost train phenomenon. Directed energy weapons for political control. While the military-industrial complex has been creating ever more despicable ways to control us through electromagnetic environment, we have brought into this nightmare with our increasing reliance on personal communications technology to the detriment of our health and freedom. And I'm so used to my cell phone, it's a problem. What else was in this magazine on the November 2014? Whistleblower scientists reveal huge cover-up. MMR vaccines are a cause of autism. Directed energy weapons, cognitive warfare, mind control. How meditation affects our genes. Anti-gravity and magnetic buoyancy. Crop circles for 2014. An enduring mystery. And interesting about the crop trails, there's a lot of occult symbolism, Masonic symbolism. Just a little trip through history here. Globalization's Game of Thrones. The world's super rich families compete and cooperate for control not over just nations but over entire regions. And the planet as a whole. Globalization has facilitated the widespread reach of the family office, now the central institution of modern family dynasties. Globalization, Game of Thrones. NASA, unable to recreate Apollo technologies. Will we ever return to the moon? They can't go to the moon now. How did they go to the moon before? Psychic cell communication. Right here. We can't go to the moon now. September 2014. Mind control in the 21st century. Technologies that can tap into our minds and control our behaviors have become increasingly sophisticated over the decades, but are hidden from for national security reasons. Some recent advances have been made have disturbing implications. Mind control techniques to 21st century. That's now. The Great Pyramid Tomb Theory demolished. Falun Gong founder speaks out on aliens, July 2014. Global currency reset, New World or New World Order. Well, it's actually both. But it's a return to the Golden Age. Apparently, maybe these ancient beings that ruled the world before, and the humans were slaves, apparently seems to be what it's all about. Like the return of the Anunnaki. Many commentators suggest that the world's currencies are about to be revalued or devalued according to each country's assets. Some believe that this will usher in a new era of prosperity, while others argue that it will strip the wealth of the middle classes and institute the new, dreaded world order. Global currency reset, May 2014. Mysteries of the Nazi underground cities. When giants walked the earth. Myth of giants are part of the folklore inherited from our ancestors, but archaeological excavations in modern times are also confirming their reality. Did these giants pass on advanced technology and culture to our predecessors in the pre-flood era? January 2013, when giants and gods walked the earth, joint naval skirmish with hostile UFOs. The transnational ruling class exposed. Transnational ruling class. The global power elites of super-connected corporations and individuals amass vast wealth at the expense of 99%. 1% rule over us and own everything, and we know who they are. These elites, Zionists, Talmudic, Freemason, Illuminati banksters, and a bunch of others involved in the occult witchcraft world. To make it a short explanation. Hollywood, Church of Satan, Jesuits, the Vatican, Rosicrucians, Bilderberger Group, Bohemian Grove. Oops, I said I would make it short. Military, industrial, media empire to protect their interest. This is 2012. The transnational ruling class exposed. The Third Reich's space race. Solar events leaked to large earthquakes. Crop circles in 2012. Let's take a look at those. Looks like some kind of incoming body. They keep talking about Nibiru. Looks like some kind of alien thing there. Just saying, it's been an interesting 11 years of my research. I have these magazines since 2005. Vitrified stonework of the ancient world. Glazing found on vitrified forts in the northern hemisphere and on stonework in Peru and Bolivia is evidence that the ancients utilized an unknown technology able to melt mineral compounds directly onto rock surfaces. They had technologies to actually melt rock. They got these perfectly fitted stones back then on ancient monuments. Stuff they can't do today. Vitrified stonework on ancient world. The Third Reich's flight to Antarctica. I have a couple pages here. The ancient lines of Egypt. We all know that the pyramids seem to line up on some interesting compass directions and all that. People have seen it. That was September 2012. The ancient megaliths of Central Sulawesi. Curious stone sculptures found in Central Sulawesi, Indonesia, could be as much as 5,000 years old and have similarities with megalithic monuments in other parts of the world, such as Central America. The hidden history of World War II. Since I've been doing my videos, I've exposed a lot of information I didn't know. So I suspect other people didn't know. Cancer risk from cell phones and Wi-Fi. Biophotons and DNA communications. Are humans really beings of light? Ancient megaliths of Sulawesi. Enzyme deficiency and chronic disease. Look at this ancient megalith in Sulawesi. Right here, this monument. Looks like Easter Island. Oh, it's got pictures right here. July 2012. Self-aware armed drones flying in the sky near you. Scientific evidence for life after death. China to disclose UFO secrets. The Vatican and the lies of Fatima. Death rays, a hidden technology. Iodine, an ancient remedy for health. Morgellons disease cover-up. (2012). The globalist agenda behind the Arab uprising. See, this stuff is common knowledge to people who have been researching 2012 March. The global uprising. The global agenda behind the Arab rising. People from a parallel Earth. March 2012. November 2013, another page on crop circles. Something is a little weird going on, don't you think? Syria, last stand for the petrodollar. They're trying to take down Syria right now. Here's where it is. Then they had the French terrorist situation. France. ET contact and human evolution. And it does cross my mind on this information. You know, but I think I've been trusting Nexus magazine for a long time. Extreme enigmas of South America's desert. Huge geoglyphs in the high deserts of Chile and Peru continue to baffle archaeologists. But some of them seem to have ironic associations with tiny creatures as well as links with sacred numbers and cosmic order. Numbers. Usually there's pictures in this magazine. You can only see these things from a plane. By the way, I'm not trying to sell Nexus magazines, I don't get anything. But I think for like 60 bucks you can get a disc with all these magazines and articles since Nexus magazine started from Australia. Shipped to you. What I do is at the end of every year, and now it's November, so January I will order all the editions from 2015 because apparently the United States won't allow them to sell these in the United States anymore because of the mind control articles and other government whistleblowing articles. Mysterious airships of the mid-1890s. Bones of giant humans found in Iraq. So just thought I'd take a little trip through history because what's coming up next is going to be interesting. Alright, so a little synopsis of this book. From the beginning, when I started this, we talked about this baby that was born, that they couldn't cut his umbilical cord even with a knife. It was a tough job. And he seemed to have psychic abilities, and one day his mother walked in his room. He was hovering in the air. So the state of Romania took control of the child, put him in an institution with other gifted and psychic people. And then he rose up and they gave him a job and trained him, and he became a responsible leader, even head of the intelligence service for research into strange and occult psychic things. And then the Iron Wall, as we all know, fell, and all those countries behind the Iron Wall that were communist had become free nations, including Romania. And this book discusses a lot of that I didn't get into. And so as they were free, some high-level Mason master, leader of the Bilderberger group, the highest organization, as this author talks about, is the Illuminati higher, the Zionist higher, the Jesuits? Who's really at the top? We don't know. Anyway, so he does go through the conversation here, and this Mason master divulges all the little nasties about the Masonic organizations and their aim for world domination. And when the intelligence officer asked him why, he said it's very simple. Power, money, sex, rule the world. He made no bones about it. And as we've been reading in the Zionist material, where the Jews call us goyim, cattle, Gentiles. They've labeled us something different than themselves. The Freemasons call us profane. Even the members inside, they can't even communicate information to their own families. H.G. Wells says we're animals and not to be trusted in the Open Conspiracy video I made. So I'm going to make a jump right through another half of this book, but I thought I would just read something here. He confessed that the Bilderberger group had representatives in the most important of political, economic, and defense organizations of the USA. So let's make no mistake about it. These groups, including connections to the presidential chair, they control the USA. Prime Minister Sharon said they control the USA. Look it up. Benjamin Netanyahu said they hate the USA and they're going to sell our country off bit by bit. We're the golden calf for them. And they wouldn't be where they were now if back in the 1920s when they came here in droves, planned by the way, barracks all over Europe, training them from Russia and that area, called Yiddish Jews. And when they came to New York, they acted like they owned the place, and the congressional hearings were held what to do about the Jewish problem or the Jewish question. This is knowledge that they don't want you to know. And for 2,000 years, these people who, I guess, feel that they're divine right to be the aristocrats, the supreme over everybody else. And maybe they have, as we read in that one video recently, Henry Ford, was it that book? No, it was Benjamin Friedman who said that they had some kind of disease coming from that part of the world that made him mentally unstable, and he seemed to think when they came before the United Nations speakings that they were crazy. There are 3 elite formations that supervise the unfolding of scientific life and technology on the planet, the orientation of the world's economy, and the settlement of the political currents, trends in different areas of the world. So I can skip over all this. I'd like to read it to you, but I can't just keep going and going and going. But they expose many more details. About how nasty these people are, dominant, without feelings, and the spiritual aspect of it, which I mentioned in this video a couple times. So I'll take a pause and mention that now. I don't like mentioning things without supporting data. I print everything out. I source everything. And I've mentioned several times that possession seems to be on the increase. So, true to my form, I Googled, or Yahoo searched, girls possessed by demons 2015. I spelled it wrong, but I got the results okay. And it's here's the search results. They got some YouTube videos. And some more information. I'll just look at a couple of them briefly. Here's another video of a girl possessed by evil spirits. She had been supposedly played with a Ouija board and went to the hospital. 10 terrifying cases of demonic possession, and I put in 2015. Girl possessed by demons, 2015 image results. Now we did go over St. Mark, the Gospel of St. Mark in the New Testament. And many places where Jesus went, he was casting out unclean spirits of people. Satanic Illuminati demon speaks through possessed. Possessed by demons, the raw story. Demonic possessions. The girl who was possessed by 6 demons. And I saw some videos. Lisa Haven, her videos. And apparently it's on the rise recently. Anyways, on this little search result, 25 million results. Just don't want anybody saying I don't know what I'm talking about. And then I mentioned also in this video the silver cord thing. So I thought, well, you know, I read about it, I knew it, but did I have any handy current information? So I Yahoo search silver cord. If you've ever had a near-death experience, and I believe I did, Christmas Day, I've gone over it in previous videos, an out-of-body experience, what might have been a near-death, why I was out of my body, or a tried astral projection, you may have seen the silver cord. The silver cord is often referred to as the life thread because it supplies energy to the physical body. Like I've said before, if your soul was extracted from your body, your physical body would just plop over. If the silver cord is severed, the physical body can no longer be sustained and dies. See, that's what it says right here. You can look this up. My videos are about education. Things that people don't know. Because we're living in a world right now, what you don't know will likely get you killed. FEMA camped. Abducted. Red dot listed. Shot. The country could go down the tubes. The world. Because of what we don't know. And what these forces, as we just seen in all those Nexus magazines, seeking a new world order. Having all kinds of high-tech weaponry. Even genetically modifying our foods, mind controlling us with radiations, things that I've been talking about and talking about, because I know from my research they all appear to be true. I had a conversation last week with a Christian about the silver cord. She told me that she was raised by her nanny who experienced an NDA near-death experience in a hospital. Her nanny stated that she was floating near the ceiling of the hospital room, watching her body on the operating table. After floating around, she grabbed the silvery-looking cord still attached to her and used it to pull herself back into her body. So when you do have an out-of-body experience and your body's still alive, the cord is still attached to your body. So you can go remote viewing and leave your body and see from the United States all the way over there into Russia. And military has remote viewers. We've gone over that in previous videos, and we're going to go over it again in future videos. Tim Rifat, David Morehouse, and I've got others who are involved in remote viewing. The government is using it. All kinds of other technologies, occult, witchcraft, Kabbalah. I know it sounds like New Age misinformation, my friend assured me, but my nanny was the most sincere person you could ever know. My friend told me, I told my friend not to worry. It wasn't misinformation after all. The silver cord is known about in many religious circles, and it's even in the Bible. So it says, or ever the silver cord be loosed, then shall the dust return to earth as it was, and the spirit shall return unto God who gave it. Ecclesiastes 12-6-7. I'm saying that wrong. Ecclesiastes 12, 6-7. Go look it up in the Bible. Or ever the silver cord be loosed. That means severed from we humans, any human, then shall the dust return. So we're made from earth and water. So we'll die is what it's meaning. And the spirit shall return unto God who gave it. Stuff people don't know. The Bible clearly supports the teachings of many Eastern religions. If the silver cord is severed, your consciousness can no longer be filtered through the physical vessel. As I keep saying. I just did a 2-minute search on this to find this. 1-minute search. Many Christian commentaries, such as the one written by evangelist John Wesley, suggest that this silver cord mentioned in Ecclesiastes, I'm sure I'm saying that wrong, for all you religious scholars, is referring to the spinal column. This is a poor interpretation. The Hebrew for loosed indicates that which is completely removed from the person, not just breaking the spinal column. So if you want to, these things that I say, I just like to back them up. And now we're going to get back to the book. But I thought I would let you know that I did do some homework about what we're about to read. And I don't just believe this book, but we know about many other mysterious monuments all over the world, from those lines in Peru, those we saw right now you could only see from a plane, Machu Picchu lines, wherever they are. The caves from Eric Van Doniken's book, The Gold of the Gods, on the top of the Andes Mountains, glass-like cutout squares with storage rooms that step all the way down at a slow pitch to the Pacific, under the Pacific, and rise on an island offshore. Apparently it was built to protect some survivors from the Noah's flood, the Great Flood. The Hopi Indians in Frank Waters' book I went over, apparently some kind of higher level beings built some underground facilities for them to survive the Great Flood. The Sphinx and the pyramids in Egypt, the big stones in Baalbek, Lebanon, all kinds of monuments in Iraq. Anyways, in this book we're talking about Romania, and we're going to be talking about some underground facility that was discovered. So I went and looked it up on the internet. Alien base for giants discovered in the Busiji Mountains. Look this up. Like 35 pages. So anyways, in the mountains, there's this electromagnetic force field deep inside the mountain, protecting this gigantic hall, room. You can find this stuff on the internet. And there was a big hoopla with the United States. And outside the mountain, there apparently is, and I said in the last video, I called something, the monument, the Phoenix. I meant the Sphinx. When I said the Egyptian Phoenix, I meant the Sphinx. The big body with the lion's or man's head. So anyways, in Romania, apparently they have a Sphinx also. And here's a drawing of the inside of the facility. Stuff they really don't want you to know. Another drawing you can, when you find this document. And you got 35 pages here. You got all kinds of comments in the back from other peoples. I would go look up this document if you find what I'm about to read fascinating. There's plenty of supporting data. Alright, let's get to the meat and potatoes of this whole purpose of this book. Besides the fact of the insidious activities of the Freemasons, controlling governments, presidents, and the governments all over the world taking special interest in psychics. And as we know, since 9/11, even when they invaded Iraq, the first place they made a beeline to were the museums for the artifacts. And with the Israelis, Zionists vying for world domination, they've been digging like dogs looking for a bone all over the Middle Eastern world on special occasions. What are they looking for? I've said this before and say it again. And then every now and then they have this discovery and it winds up in the newspapers. While the war is going on, people are being machine gunned and bombed. And they've got security forces guarding these archaeologists who are digging for something. What are they looking for? And then with the Smithsonian Institute, the Vatican, the United States government, CIA, NATO, worldwide, when they do find one of these big skeletons or any other archaeological find, the people, as soon as they get word of it through the local newspaper, whatever, they swarm in there, take everything, even blow up the entrances or grounds or caves, and threaten the people who found it with imprisonment or even death if they divulge these secrets. What are they hiding from the rest of us? What's going on? Shouldn't we be asking? Moving on to this book here. We found them collapsed at the interior base of the invisible energetic barrier, where their bodies strangely contorted. So when they did find this ancient site here, in Romania, a couple soldiers had stepped outside of the bounds where they were supposed to step, and it was like some force field. Bodies strangely contorted. I'm not even sure that the President of the USA was notified of this operation. It was obviously an internal backstage affair. The Masons were in charge. The Illuminati, which also means the Zionists. The Vatican, the Jesuits. The Bilderbergers. The Bohemian Grove. All these elitist groups. So it talks about entering the facility. It was a vibrational frequency problem. They couldn't get into the facility even though they were drilling with these USA military drills they have when they got to the barrier. The force field, the plasma drills wouldn't even melt the rock. It was a big problem. But looking for a solution, I closed my eyes and focused on the energetic barrier. Shortly, I felt that it was alive, but in a very special way. So this barrier had senses, could detect things. I then took a few stones from the ground and threw them towards the invisible energetic barrier. As soon as the stones touched the energetic barrier, they were transformed into a fine powder that fell on the ground, forming a straight line. So as we know from reading this book, the reason the Master Mason, high-level leader Mason, went to see this intelligence officer who was a psychic was because of the discovery of this cave, and he asked him to join their group, and we went through all that discussion on about the Masons. So they control all these secret technologies. They control our presidents and all these, the money, the economy. The reason we're suffering and having pain in the French terrorism situation, Boston bombing, Oklahoma City bombing, 9/11, World War I, World War II. These people admit that they caused these things and control everything. Yes? No? Everything made from antiferous substances was instantly turned into powder. So anything that wasn't biological turned into powder. And everything that was organic material was rejected, unless it had a certain individual high vibrational frequency. So this underground cavern would only allow a being of a certain frequency to enter. I went to the wall and pressed the triangle from a perfectly finished stone square. The gate, from which you now see just apart, immediately started to glide smoothly, almost without any noise, until it stopped in the position it is now. And the psychic had the right frequency, and when he pressed the triangle-shaped etching on the stone, the granite wall moved aside. This is almost like a sci-fi TV program. But apparently this is true. Told you I did a little research. And I read a lot of people's comments. It was secret operations with the USA and the Romanian government. People everywhere were not permitted to be there or know anything. And even today, a lot of the world, most of the world, is unaware of this particular event. We were shocked that it was lit just as you see it now, but without actually containing any light source. So the whole hall was lighted, but there was no light bulbs or anything like that. The actual walls themselves glowed. Okay, so they tried to send a few soldiers in here. After we closed the gate and activated the energetic barrier, they told me that they felt like they were suffocating, and it became more and more acute. So you can't even go inside and close the gate if you're not of the right frequency. You will start suffocating inside this 50,000 years old is what they said this ancient facility was like. Interesting book. I'm not reading hardly any of it. Just certain highlighted paragraphs. Skipping a lot. But I thought it was important. The technological means through which we were shown this data is colossal. But unfortunately, you can't have access to it. You will understand when we get to the projection hall, as we decided to name it. So they've named this facility in this mountain in Romania the projection hall. And here's what you can look up to find it. So you got these people bent on world domination, eliminating 85% of the world population, and are into all these high technologies and control governments and have access to such discoveries as this. The satellite data showed the existence of a huge space at the end of the gallery. So they are using the satellites with taxpayer money to find stuff all over the world. And no matter who owns the land, I'm sure they find a way to get them off of it. Like in Iraq, for example, they create a war and start murdering everybody. What's in Syria that they want so bad? In Iran that they want so bad that they can see with those satellites X-ray on the ground. Oil fields. Why do they want to microchip we the people? Take away all the rights we have. How many people might be billionaires, trillionaires on property they own that they don't want people to know about that? Why don't we have access to those satellite photos and equipment? The shield enclosed in the projection hall and everything in it contained, the structure's grandeur is incomparable. Just reading paragraphs and sentences, but you'll get the gist of the story. Anyways, apparently next to Baghdad, the satellite also discovered another underground hall with the same kind of force field around it. Maybe you think that has something to do with taking over the Middle East, bombing everybody to smithereens, making the people flee from their lives? And apparently between this one in Romania with the force field in the mountain, there's apparently a tunnel that runs all the way over to Baghdad to that other one. That there was, as well, was an energetic barrier that couldn't be breached, but was identical to the semi-spiritual shield that surrounded the big hall from here. So in Baghdad, they had this semi-spherical shield protecting this open space, underground or in a mountain. Baghdad suddenly activated. So when they activated the one in Romania, Baghdad suddenly activated and started pulsing at great frequencies. Is this stuff true? And that's why I showed you the Nexus magazines. Is apparently there is something going on all over the world. There's a reason for what they're doing, and it appears to be something biblical. They do want to microchip everybody and take everybody's freedom away and enslave everybody, calling it sustainability, Agenda 21, global warming because of global warming, global cooling, and even climate change, when we all know the climate always changes. The amazing information was that a hologram appeared in front of it, gradually showing Europe, and then the southeast of Europe, then Romania's territory. So in this projection hall, in this 50,000-year-old hall, ancient high-tech site, they had this hologram that appeared, showing Europe, Romanian territory, and the Busigi Mountains, and finally location of the inner structure within the Great Galleries corridor, and a semi-spherical energy shield that was strongly pulsing. It was obvious that the two energetic semi-spherical shields were directly but mysteriously connected, and that the activation of one of them led to the activation of the other one. Who knows, maybe there is a network of these kinds of underground structures all over the world. And none of this, by the way, has anything to do with believing and not believing in God. We're all spiritual beings in these biological bodies. If you know anything about the ancient books about Atlantis and other stuff, these down in Peru, that there was a highly advanced technical race of people before the Great Flood. And according to what I understand, the reason for the Great Flood is they had to erase all the humans or beings that were alive, because apparently they had exceedingly gone over to the dark side and doing things that were horrific and abhorrent to God, mixing, as we all seen in mythology, half horse, half man. Go get any book on mythology. See the genetics, eugenics, manipulations that they were doing with animals and people. Half horse, half human. Half snake, half human. For sex purposes, slave purposes, warriors. It was apparently a very sinister times. And apparently when Atlantis sunk, a lot of the Atlanteans went to the Egyptian area, and they were doing these eugenics, genetic manipulations of horrific type looking creatures, half human, half animal. And the Egypts were horrified, and they were actually warring with the Atlanteans until they came up with a peace treaty, and the Atlanteans agreed to cease and desist. But obviously, you know, a lot of the world was already, had gone too far in altering God's creation of man the way he wanted it into something that was very sinister and horrific, monstrous. So there was a purpose for the Great Flood, to start over. So there was a very fierce fight between the Romanian and the American diplomats, page 226. The gigantic arch the energy shield formed was a splendid radiant blue, continuously crossed by intense bright white flashes. And again, I'm just reading a highlighted sentence or two every other page, so you're not getting a lot of the good stuff. This video would be forever. I entered the projection room you see in front of your eyes. I was alone, and I found out the terrible mystery that had been hidden for 50,000 years. So the governments were fighting about this discovery. A declaration of a state of emergency in the mountain area was expected at any moment, page 230. The Ministry of Defense gave an order of general alert for the officers. There were moments of great panic and even terror among those involved in the operation, and no one knew the real cause creating the current tension. So the people controlling the USA, which was not the USA citizens, as Prime Minister Sharon of Israel said, we control the USA, And it is those Jewish types who control the Freemasons, if you've been watching my videos. And 12 two-hour videos I made on the Blue Lodge Handbook. It all has to do with King Solomon's temple. King Solomon, King Hiram, Israel area, Palestine, and that whole area. Those Zionist, Talmudic, world-dominating Jewish types, not to be confused with your next-door neighbor Jewish person who watches the baby or something, or you go play bowling with or something. A lot of Jewish people here in America are unaware of this stuff. They could be normal Orthodox Jews, Jews who have converted to Christianity. They could be atheists, or Torah Jews, which apparently are the good ones. But if they're Talmudic or Zionists wanting world domination, as Professor Higger said in that book in the Texas Library we went over, The Jewish Utopia, or The Bloody Zion, and those other books we went over, the Americans reacted violently as the declaration would have shattered their planetary influences in a second. So the Romanians, because of all the struggle with America over the secrecy of this discovery, wanted to tell the world. But the Americans reacted violently. The Americans, it isn't we Americans, it's these elitists who keep everything secret from the rest of us, destroying the economy 8 times since 1913 when they created the Federal Reserve, taking all the wealth from us so they can keep us suppressed. Putting fluoride in the water and toothpaste and who knows what else within the foods. Suppressing, calcifying, destroying your pineal gland so you can't have access to higher psychic abilities or divine connection. Making life better, more spiritual for us all. They don't want that to happen. As Rabbi Marvin Altelman wrote in his 2 books, to eliminate the opate, and the opate means to believe in God, connection to God. They don't want people to believe in God. They're afraid of people believing in God. They know what you can connect with that silver cord, that when you pray, you receive. They know that. They don't want divine intervention. They don't want mass consciousness waking up with everybody. That's their biggest fear. Their biggest fear is Christianity, because it's one of those connections. So the Americans reacted violently. These would be the elitists behind the scenes that are into satanic cult rituals, including pedophilia, throwing babies in the fires, and many other things, stealing all of our wealth, assassinating people all over the world, as we just went over with the Nexus magazines. Declaration that would shatter their planetary influence in a second. They wanted to avoid the panic and disturbance of all the people on Earth. They didn't want the people on Earth to wake up to what's going on. They want to use the excuse that everybody will be upset about their religions and all that, and everybody will go crazy. That's completely wrong. We are intelligent human beings, all of us, Americans, Europeans, Africans, Asians, all over the world. We don't have to be protected from ourselves. We need to be protected from these people who are worried about shattering their planetary influence on page 231 in this book. They said it's going to cause social anguish if we find out that there's a 50,000-year-old high-technology chamber in Romania with holographic equipment. And apparently some equipment also that can actually control the weather and tectonic plate movement, maybe altering or tilting the Earth a little bit. Remember, they're building HARP systems all over the planet in strategic locations. And the disturbed condition might have appeared as a direct result of the lies and manipulations the ruling classes, especially the Masonic organizations, have been maintaining all this time. So we have the crooked mafia-type people ruling our world, having access to these secret, high-technological, 50,000-year-old facilities. The evil people are in charge. and they use satellites to x-ray the ground and find this stuff, and cause wars and chaos and murder all the people to keep everybody from knowing anything and away from the location. It's pretty terrible. There were a special diplomatic channel. A personal papal approach was received. So they involved the Vatican. The Vatican had already been informed by the Americans. I hope you find this to be a fascinating story. He even communicated, the Pope, he would put at the Romanian state's disposal certain ancient documents from the secret archives of the papal administration that are very important to Romania and support the proofs of the discovery in the mountains. So the Pope, the Vatican, was trying to bribe the Romanian state that they would give them some ancient documents about their own country. So the Vatican knows a lot of things, and makes one wonder why they put the new Pope in there. The other guy stepped down, who was a Jesuit, and if anybody knows who the Jesuits are, the Jesuits were actually banned by the Catholic Church at one time, excommunicated. Anyways, they are the black arm of the Vatican, the assassins, as they are sometimes called. And the Pope of the Jesuits is called the Black Pope. So we have to have the evil Pope in charge of the Vatican right now when they have discoveries like this that they're finding with the satellites in space. Now, like I said before, none of this interferes with religion. We all know that the Great Flood wiped out all those peoples they had prior to that because of the evil doings that they were doing. Noah was warned to build an ark, right? This is the ancient stories. And these stories exist all over the world. So for some reason there had to be a restart. But some people were saved all over the world. Hopi Indians, Peruvians, people from Ecuador, and those big caverns cut out with some super high technologies. The projection room. Just an interesting thought. Nikola Tesla, late when he got older, he said that he didn't think up all these things. He was having visions and dreams and hearing things. And he was born from that area. This makes one wonder, you know, were these 50,000-year-old civilization with all its high-tech equipment, were they selecting people worldwide to be the recipients of technology so that we could proceed to grow at an exponential rate that we have in the last 100 years? Remember, almost 100 years ago, we didn't have TV. Suddenly, in a gigantic room inside the mountain, it was about 30 meters high. It was like almost 100 feet high. 100 meters long, 300 feet long. Inside this gigantic room in the mountain that had a force field. The energy shield's role to protect from exterior bad influences. The shield was like a perfect holographic projection, but its consistency was pure energy. And I've said it all along, these people, this is back in, when was this book written? Copyright 2003. So it was 86 or something that the Iron Wall came down. So they've had plenty of time. They have the technologies for energy worldwide. And if they have access to these facilities, they have access to equipment that can control the earth. And you're going to find that out in this book right here in a minute. I turned and saw a line of a huge T-shaped tables, made of stone and lined up against the wall. None of these tables was shorter than 2 meters high. So if you go walk over to your table in your kitchen, it's at about 4 feet high. I should go measure. 3.5 feet high. These tables were 6 feet high. So when you were standing next to the table, the top of your head would be at the table. You couldn't see on top of the table unless you were taller than 6 feet. So apparently these creatures who had built this facility, all the equipment, chairs, tables, and monitors were all made for giants, which are mentioned in the Bible. Stephen Quayle's book, The Giants, we've gone over this stuff. And many people, even in Ohio, all over the world, maybe they're digging a root cellar or some excavation for whatever reason, and they find a giant with the head the size of a microwave oven or a small washing machine. As soon as it hits the papers, the Smithsonian or other people in black suits show up, confiscate everything, threaten people, as I've said before, to not disclose everything or they'll go to prison. National security. Why? What are they hiding? There were 5 tables on each side of the room. On some of them I could see different objects of unknown use. They look like technical tools for scientific use. So they've had this stuff for 20 years now. And our governments know all about it. Several white translucent wires descended from many of them. Sounds like fiber optics. Gathering in rectangular boxes situated outside the table and on the ground. The boxes were made of shiny silver metal that could not be scratched. I tried to move one of them, but it was too well anchored to the ground. The delicate cables were extremely flexible and light, and inside you could see small bright impulses that would slide along their whole length. When I passed by a table, a holographic projection presented aspects from a certain scientific domain which simultaneously activated on its surface. The 3-dimensional colored images were perfect and very big, almost 2.5 meters high, 7 or 8 feet. Besides, the tables were tall. I could not see where the source of the hologram projection was. 50,000-year-old hologram projectors of a scientific technology that completely unknown to we people today. The holographic projections appeared to be there. The technology used was great. And again, I'm just skipping stuff. There's a picture on the back of the book here of the facility. The rays that formed the hologram went out from a central slot in a perfectly coherent pattern. Apparently its domain was biology, as images of plants and animals scrolled in front of my eyes. Some of them being totally unknown to me. Sounds like some kind of lab for making biological plants and beings. I slightly touched one of the squares, which was the biggest of the hologram, and the hologram began presenting an automatic structure of the human body. So he touched one of the squares, and the hologram began presenting the automatic structure of the human body. Actually, I soon realized it was my body because a certain mark I had on my arm. If I moved the finger inside the square, the image would read the inside of my body. My amazements were boundless as I zoomed into extremely tiny dimensions, passing over individual cells and their nucleus, reaching the molecular area. I thought I was dreaming, but I really saw a molecule that was part of my own liver and was shown in a huge dimension. In a few moments, I had gone way beyond even the most dared dreams of the modern scientists. Do you suppose they want the rest of us to know this, if this is true? I know I've got 2 more stacks of Nexus magazines. We could look at more and more evidence to see there are facilities all over the world, secret government activities all over the world, mind control activities all over the world, all kinds of detrimental activities to the human peoples. Crop circles. What are they trying to tell us? I went over several squares watching the incredible projections of life and other celestial bodies. The holographic image would render a very complex scientific analysis, presenting the DNA molecules of those beings and their compatible possibilities between them. These were dynamic and presented in a series as the possible phases of mixing of two life forms. So apparently this supercomputer you could take two different life forms and with the control panel merge them together and a new life form would be formed. Wow. So we know the stories about Atlantis that I keep mentioning, what they had done when they came from the sinking Atlantis to the Egyptian area. They brought with them some horrific technologies like what we're talking about here. In the end, the most probable mutant form appeared as a combination of genetic data. So what if they mixed an animal with a plant, what they would get? Apparently this computer would show a probable mutant form. Oh my. You can spend years here without getting bored, I exclaimed. I almost cannot believe they've reached such an advanced technological level. Who were they? You must know. He's talking to the author, to the intelligence officer. It is as if they wanted to leave us this invaluable treasure, but did not want us to know who they were. The only aspect we can suspect is that they were probably very tall. We cannot otherwise explain the gigantic dimensions of some objects in here. I continued my rapid investigations over each table. There were projections from physics, cosmology, astronomy, architecture, technology, religion, and a domain representing the characteristics of several races of intelligent beings that did not look entirely human. We're out there in the twilight zone here. Is this stuff true? We read the Bible and we see Jesus casting out unclean spirits, healing lepers, raising dead people from the dead, seeing into the future, making massive amount of bread and fish out of 3 loaves and 2 fish, feeding 4,000 people. There's something more to reality than we all know, and it might bode well for us if we were to pay attention and find out what we should know, rather than living in ignorance and allowing these people who want to dominate the world keep us dumbed down and try to enslave us, and those who resist will be killed in probably a very horrific fashion. As we know, if you go check on the internet, truck drivers on YouTube videos saying they're delivering guillotines to army bases, maybe FEMA camps. Governments buying hollow point bullets. Running programs in secret with our county governments, city governments. Agenda 21. Passing all kinds of crazy legislation. Patriotic Act. Crisis actors in all these shootings and bombings and situations. Murdering all the people in the Middle East. Who knows what they're going to do with all the people in the United States who are unemployed? The situation is not going to last forever the way it is now, with what they got planned and how they have set the stage up. Imagine if they turned off everybody's ATM machine tomorrow. The system went down, an EMP pulse. Fabricated or not. But of course they would lie to everybody. Say it was a solar flare. Everybody would have to get regimented, go to FEMA camps, police state, overnight. We have come to the conclusion that this represents a mental emission installation, thought amplifier or true mind machine, structure according to the dimensions of its builders. The mental sensors you see higher up would fit perfectly on the head of a 3.5-meter man. So 10, 12-foot man, the helmet there would fit on his head that sits down on the platform. I noticed many triangles, squares, and spirals on the controls. So he suggested passing his hand over the square containing the circle. I did what he asked me right away, and a huge holographic image appeared in front of me. It was about 2 meters away from the board and represented the Earth viewed from about 25 kilometers away in the atmosphere. I saw how big streams of water, like giant rivers, appeared from everywhere inside the territory that now includes the entire of Romania, a big part of Hungary and the Ukraine, flowing waters towards the mountains and Transylvanian platform. So with the dials on this machine, water would rise up from the ground and just start flowing on the surface, flooding the surface. We know they have all that stuff on YouTube with pole shifting, asteroid coming towards Earth, planet X, earthquakes. If they've got control of facilities like this, they could actually cause those things. The image then zoomed in, and I saw how in a brief period of time the whole of Romania became practically a new sea, from which you could only see some mountain tops or small pieces of land as islands. So apparently they left instructions on how to do this, so that pressing the red button produces the flood and the disaster you briefly watched. So apparently this machine can actually produce worldwide floods. In this area anyways. And if they have these machines all over the world, it would cause some kind of reason for water below the surface to percolate up and start flooding the earth. So that the pressing of the red button produces the flood and the disaster that you briefly watched. I know it all sounds crazy, but hey, I read books. I'm going to read more books and more books. Let's see what those books do match with this material. We suspect that these devices maintain, in a way that is totally unknown to us so far, the essential energetic balance of the tectonic area of Romania. You have just seen the disaster that can happen if this equilibrium is affected. So the equilibrium with this gigantic machine can either push back waters or allow them to come to rise. The equilibrium in the atmosphere. Maybe it's an atmospheric pressure machine, expanding the ionosphere out or in, drawing up the waters or pressing them with pressure back down. I don't know. Just a wannabe scientist myself. Been reading all kinds of stuff. Did work at the aerospace company near the Space Center in Florida for 10 years. Have an electronic technology degree. I've been studying physics all my life. Just one of those things. Everybody has their hobbies. A vessel like an ancient amphoria, like a big vase, about 1/2 meter high, was in front of the dome. The content of the amphoria represents one of the strong points of the discovery. Personally, I think this is what the Venerable Massini, the Masonic elitist guy that came there, wanted. Inside the vase was an unknown crystalline structure of monatomic gold. Monatomic gold dust is very difficult to obtain, especially in a very high purity, as is described in some ancient text and a few genuine alchemy references from the Middle East. Even so, incredible therapeutic effects, especially regarding the regenerative capability. So apparently this monotonic gold can actually help a human to live forever, thousands of years. Regenerative capability. The Venerable One knew about it before entering here. I do not know how, but from where the Masonic elite had such sources of information. So we know that these Masonic elitists, like the Vatican vaults, have lots of knowledge they don't share with the rest of us. Like the Zionist or Talmudic Jewish people with into the Kabbalah, witchcraft and magic that we keep talking about. And again, I don't really have an objection to people learning natural sciences, as I call them, like using a dowser, or healing people, or understanding the dimensions of the silver cord, the aura, and all kinds of other high technologies for healing and increasing the spiritual growth of human beings. Natural sciences. But it's when it's used for dark purposes, like voodoo, to destroy people, manipulate, use, and steal wealth, I call it witchcraft. Got it? Some people like to call it good magic and bad magic, but they go out of their way to murder people and keep any magic from other than themselves, which we know that when Rome took Christianity over and proceeded to go all over the world and destroy any other people's knowledge of the occult, like burning the Library of Alexandria, or going down there into Mexico, into the Mexican large city. I guess it was near where Mexico City is now. This was an ancient, hundreds of years old. And go to the shaman's hut, take all of his magic materials and knowledge, kill him, and then proceed to start killing the natives and stealing all their gold. Not so nice. Jesus would not have done that, in my opinion. They said that theoretically one could live in the same physical body for thousands of years if one consumed a well-determined quantity of the dust periodically. It is mind-blowing and almost unbelievable for the condition and mentality of the present individual. But this explains many enigmatic aspects of humankind's history, aspects about the incredible longevity of some important figures. It also clarifies the hidden intentions of the Masonic elites. So these Masonic elites want to rule the world, and they've already admitted they know a certain number of people planet-wide that is suitable for their management. But there's too many people for them to manage right now, and that scares them, threatens them. So they have to find a way to remove them, murder them. But they'd like to do it in a subtle way, so that it looked like a natural occurrence. I then witnessed a huge hologram that was with moving elements projected from the slot of the dome. I quickly understood those projections were the main aspect of the extremely ancient past of humanity. Unfortunately, I was not allowed to write in this book certain essential aspects of our planet's past that I had watched in a compact version. I honestly confess, according to my judgment, 90% of what is officially known today on the history of humankind is fake and fabricated. On the other hand, the myths and legends that fill storybooks, considered by most people to be a product of bubbly imagination, are almost true in many respects. So the Bible, in my opinion, generally is a true document of history. Some of their fantasies, that of old continents of Atlantis and Lemuria, they think they're a myth, are now completely shattered because I saw clearly then and there how things really happened. So apparently they had a projection in this facility in Romania. It showed a whole little screen show of history of Earth. The problem was that the time period covered by the hologram was huge, several hundreds of thousands of years. The Earth's precession cycle of 25,920 years brings the constellations in their relative position to our planet to the same spot at periods of time that are multiple of 26,000 years each. So if you take 26,000 and divide it by 12, the astrological signs, you get about 2,160 or something years for each sign. The age of Pisces, when Jesus was born, and the age of Aquarius, where we have entered now. We could draw the conclusion that the construction in the Busiji Mountains was built about 50 to 55,000 years ago because the image of the Great Gallery and of the main room was projected with all the objects inside that we found. I saw what really happened during the Big Flood, as well as the germs of human civilization that followed it, and how they later populated Europe, Asia, and Africa. I have not been allowed to disclose these aspects yet, as they imply realities much too shocking for the mentality, ideas, knowledge of the contemporary man. I saw in a dramatic course of images the life of Jesus and his crucifixion, denied by some even nowadays. I have to say that a lot of amazing things happened then, things that are much more astonishing than what gospel present. Now remember, we're entering, where we have entered, the age of Aquarius now. And when Jesus was born was the beginning of the age of Pisces. And I'm sure it wasn't that day. Might have been 100 years earlier. It began the age of Pisces. And those were the dramatic events that happened then. So one would probably have to believe there would probably be dramatic events that happen now. And if we look in history, dramatic events have been happening all along. And people behind the scenes have been controlling and causing events. Whether physical beings on earth or apparently in combination with spiritual beings. And I don't believe, in my personal belief, that there are advanced civilizations on other planets that are going to come here, that are going to save us or anything. If there were such a thing, I could not possibly believe they would have allowed to happen on Earth what has happened so far, like World War I and World War II, or these evil people in charge. There's something going on much bigger than we all know. There's a reality going on that we're not aware of. And it might behoove us to become aware of it. The government had no right to take this United States government and force their way into that country, force them to not tell the whole world, keep all this stuff secret. They're doing a detrimental service to the peoples of the planet and the growth of the human people. Never mind destroying our natural resources and polluting the planet. They have technologies that could solve all of that. They're the ones making Monsanto foods and vaccines that are toxic and detrimental and poisonous to we the people. But they're forcing it on us. And they want to disarm us. You don't have to be Sherlock Holmes to see what's going on here. They don't want us to know what they have. And they have plans for a bright future where they can dominate the planet and live for thousands of years. And other people will be their little foot servants and sex slaves and worker slaves and warrior slaves and fight each other for their entertainment. It's the way it looks like to me. Which is also what has happened in the past. Rome, Genghis Khan, Hitler, many more. Alexander. They don't call Britain the United Kingdom for nothing. And they called Germany the Germany Empire for nothing. Now they're saying the United States Empire. It'll never work. They'll take us all down with them. So anyways, in this hologram, he saw the life of Jesus. and some amazing things that happened then. Things that are much more astonishing than what the gospel present. The projection also revealed that many of the persons who attended the crucifixion of Jesus on the hill, people who were not from that time, but who had come there from historical periods. We just did Gospel of St. Mark. And in the Gospel of St. Mark, Jesus took a couple of his disciples up a mountain. And there appeared Moses and Esau. And this cloud appeared, I guess like a ship with a cloud cover, and said in a loud voice, "This is my son, listen to him." Read St. Mark. I look at my video. So if that's true, and then here with this holographic machine, apparently people like Moses and Esau who were at the crucifixion of Jesus viewed in that holographic film, video. People not from that time, but who came there from other historical periods. So when Moses was on that hill with the two disciples, and Esau, Moses was born 1,000 years earlier, 700-800 years earlier, when they got the Jews. Hebrews, the Jew word did not exist back then. I don't even like using the word Jew. It doesn't have a meaning. But the Hebrews were led out of Egypt by Moses. So here was Moses present with Jesus 700-800 years later. And a cloud in the sky says, "That is my son, listen to him." These human beings who had the same clothes as the Jewish present there had totally different features, and that was the reason why they were hiding their faces under the flow of clothes. So we see a lot of these ancient beings, even monuments on your downtown city streets. You'll see these creatures with these hoodies on their head. And if you go back and look at history, magicians and advisors to kings, they were these kind of grotesque looking creatures and always had a hoodie over their head to protect themselves. So I don't suspect that they were a human being looking like me or you. Reptilian, maybe? The hologram was sequentially presented the lives and spiritual missions of certain exceptional persons who truly proved to possess amazing divine gifts. Those persons were from ancient past, the ancient past. I thus saw the deeds of great spiritual reformers from 18 and 20,000 years ago that we know nothing of. So we don't know about any of these famous people prior to Noah's flood. So apparently inside this structure, take a look at these pictures for a moment. I did find this document. And there were many others. I just searched the Busiji Mountains discovery. And there is a sphinx seemingly figure out front of the mountain. And they have a tunnel system entrance. And apparently the Masons went out of their way to get control and controlled governments, told presidents what to do. And this isn't the only location around the world where there's some mysterious things like this, and we'll go over those in future videos, including psychic research, remote viewing, more about the human aura in the body, government activities, giant skeletons. If you find this stuff as fascinating as I do, So apparently inside this facility, 3 tunnels were heading towards 3 different areas on Earth for thousands of kilometers. The left one connected to Egypt in a secret place under the sand. This was next to Cairo, or the Gaza Plateau, which is located between the Sphinx and the Great Pyramids. So apparently there is a tunnel system from the Great Sphinx and the Pyramid all the way over to this one in Romania. The right one connected to a similar structure inside of a mountain placed on the Tibetan Plateau in India, China border. We know a lot about the Tibetan area, the Himalayas, underground facilities. Like I said, there's a lot more to go through here to prove beyond a doubt that there was an advanced civilization prior to Noah's flood. And that doesn't destroy any evidence or explanation about that we are spiritual beings in these biological bodies. I don't think humanity was created yesterday. And I do think that it was destroyed and a lot of people were protected. Even the Hopi book I read by Frank Waters talks about it. Eric von Doniken's The Gold of the God book talks about it. Those Machu Picchu lines you can only see from a plane show us. Those big stones in Baalbek, Lebanon. King Solomon's Temple, the big stones that make up the base of it. You can't move those stones today. And they came from a faraway quarry. So there was another one that led to under Buzui, close to the Carpathians Mountains, and curved back towards the subterranean assembly in Iraq that is close to Baghdad. So we know why they went into Baghdad. We know why they did everything in the Middle East. They were after something. And there's even people who have confessed they made a beeline for the museum when they went in there. The poor Iraqi people and all the people in the Middle East have been destroyed for this advanced forward movement towards world domination and creating some kind of new world order, new age religion. Return to the golden age. And it's not meant to be golden for we the people. The latter also had a secondary ramification that led to the Gobi Plateau in Mongolia. Mongolia is a big place. This is where Genghis Khan came from. This is where apparently the Khazars people came from, and the DNA. Explains a lot. Knowing the Masons' terrible political influence and Signor Massini's relations with the political structures of the two countries, we could suspect that there would be a gradual attempt to take over the control of the base by factors that were exterior to the interest of our government. Caesar told me that there are very important persons in our political and administrative system who, quite fortunately, know about the abominable practices of the Masons and are strongly opposed to their influence, especially with regard to taking over the great discovery in the Busiji Mountains. He then told me that the central tunnel leads towards the interior and even beyond the crust of the earth, but would not give me further details. Makes me wonder about the hollow earth theory. Before leaving the room, Caesar told me that very secret and intense preparations for certain expeditions were on their way. First through the tunnel towards Egypt, then towards Tibet, and finally big expeditions inside the earth via the middle tunnel. Are they actually going to try to go through that tunnel if there is a hollow earth and another civilization inside the earth? You can go on hollow earth theory on YouTube and see all that stuff. Is Earth one gigantic artificial creation with some kind of control system? Just me wondering aloud. That still doesn't have any effect on me being a spiritual being. God can create anything. Look, we've created planes and nuclear power plants and ships, helicopters. It was decided to form a team of the best men to do this expedition. So this was 2003. The departure would be thousands of kilometers were to be traversed. A year after my visit to that place, I still vividly recall the overwhelmingly impressions I had during those several hours when I was in that surreal environment created by this secret construction inside the Basiji Mountains. So who wrote this book was Radu Cinamar. And then Peter Moon published that story we just went over here in the United States. And here we have an epilogue by Peter Moon. And he says, this is exactly how the original Romanian edition of the book entitled The Enemy Within was ended. Despite the remarkable nature of the findings, the story has remained largely unnoticed, particularly in America, save for those of the highest of security clearances. Well, up until now, if you watch this video, you know the story. Not only has Romania become a member nation of NATO during this period, but their country was chosen as a site for the new major NATO summit in recent times. None of this is a coincidence. Romania is now center stage of the most mysterious of ways. To the average citizen of Earth, however, it goes unnoticed. There's more I could read, but like I said, we learned a few things here. We know the governments are into psychic research and identifying psychic individuals and bringing them into their fold, influence. We know that the Freemasonic, Illuminati, Zionist, Jesuit, Vatican, banks, they're a bunch of elitist, evil folks, satanic in nature, control our governments and the leaders. We know they try to keep everything from the people. And we know that they're discovering these ancient sites and other things with these advanced satellite technologies that can x-ray the earth. And we know they're trying to remove freedom and rights, and with the excuse of Agenda 21, sustainability, global warming, global cooling, now climate change, overpopulation, threatened water usages, drought, stuff that they can control the planet with the sky spraying HARP systems. All this wealth and prosperity and future is to be denied the average person, is what it boils down to. And the elitists probably have the technologies to extend their lives, even with cloning, to be able to have a body laying next to them when they die. And if it's cloned, it has the same frequency that I've gone over in previous materials, and we'll go over in the future, cloning. And as the soul rises when they kill the body, it goes into the other body right next to it because it has the right frequency. Just as if the one body that it left had an out-of-body experience, and it left and it came back in. In this case, it's going to leave this one and go over to the one on an adjoining table. And let's not forget, in Rabbi Marvin Antelman's book with Hitler, that we went over in previous videos, doing that one satanic ritual where they abducted a young gypsy man from Munich, Germany, sacrificed him on an altar in a satanic ritual, trying to bring forth some kind of interdimensional demonic entity. And they had a girl of the cult laying in an adjoining altar, and they wanted the demonic entity to impregnate the girl to bring forth some kind of super being. I wonder if this is how they're trying to bring about some kind of antichrist. Apparently, in reading some of this material, and this time machine material and stuff, they wanted to go back into the age of when Jesus was alive, get some of his DNA, bring it back here, and try to clone it or create some kind of being with that DNA to be the Antichrist. Lots of weird theories out there, possibilities, but we can say for certain, and I'll make one little preview here, just a simple second batch of Nexus magazine. We know for certain crazy things are going on. Australian government UFO files revealed. Tuskegee mystery deepens. Science, suppressed science, magnetic monopoles. (2005) February. Big problems with nanotechnology. The Gilgamesh Project. Does immortality await us? The race for free energy. Unveiling the bloody history of Buddhism. August 2005. Remember, this series is Freemasonry and Satanism book review, which includes magazine reviews. Cell phone hormone disruption in cancer. Bilderbergers towards a new world company, a one world company. Right here where my finger is. And that would be October 2007. Crop circles of 2007. Wow, that looks like something interesting. So when we think about this discovery facility in Romania, and we look at all this other stuff, crop circles. This is December 2007. Mystery of the Ice Ages. What do they have planned for us? 2007. The conscience ether, as I was talking about earlier. People who are psychic can see if there's ghosts around us or other things in the air that our eyesight does not see. Some people can. The conscience ether. Covert weapons for social control, where my finger is. The conscience ether. The intelligent ether. The mystery of the Olmecs. There's another group we need to look at. The Olmecs. In the bottom. February 2008. The agenda to control global food supplies, where my finger is here. The secret war waged against ET contactees. Ancient nuclear battles. Planning for Planet X, April 2008. What I'm trying to say here is this information, a lot of it's not new. If you've been a researcher, you know a lot of this stuff. If you haven't been a researcher, my videos are a quick guide to lots of information. You don't have to read all those books and take 10 or 11 years. You got a quick ride to what I've discovered, assuming you believe I'm telling the truth. And of course I say, don't believe anything I say, go take some notes and look it up. Eastern secret societies versus the Illuminati, right here, where my finger is. So many people don't even believe there is an Illuminati. 2008, and you can go see books that are 100 years old or 200, and it does say Illuminati. The Illumined ones. The Iran agenda. Earth's hidden twin. Pyramid prophecies. Electricity from the air. Okay, October 2008. So I read these every year, and I've got more of these books. Cryptic crop circles. We got more crop circles here. Here's some discs they found in China. I remember reading about this. With ancient information. The Dopa tribe and their stone disc revisited. So this would be 2008, December. RFID chip surveillance, your every move being tracked. And cryptic crop circles. Let's look at another page of crop circles. Over the years that I've been getting these magazines. Look at this one. Looks like where my finger is. Looks like planets and something being described. Some interaction between two suns or something. Fascinating. I've always been a big fan of Nexus magazine. It's a good resource. RFID chip surveillance. Even the UN now is now talking about everybody being chipped. Where my finger is here. They're going to continue to bring in people into our societies that they say that are terrorists, creating more insanity. And so they're going to have to force everybody to get chipped to protect us against these people they put in our own cities and towns. And the people are none the wiser. Thank you for watching my video. Rick Miracle reporting.